A mysterious narrator reflects on the beauty of life's small joys and the tragedy of a hopeless fool who died for the sake of another's convenience. +3. The narrator recalls a kind and soft-hearted woman who insisted everyone has a right to be happy and promised to save them. +4. She reached out to the narrator during their darkest moment, providing a reason for living through her genuine concern. +1. Looking into the eyes of a hooded figure, the narrator realizes that every word she spoke was born from her true feelings. +1. In a fleeting moment of prayer, the narrator wishes to remain by this person's side forever, vowing to protect their lord. +1. The title page reveals the formidable female knight Amelia Miseldia and the royal figure she serves, as the story of her reincarnation begins. +4. A carriage travels across a bridge as the narration describes a loyalist, so foolishly honest they were beyond saving. Looking at her own reflection, the reincarnated Amelia realizes those from her previous life would likely describe her end with those exact words. +1. Amelia gazes out of the carriage at a distant castle, reflecting on the nostalgic and fading memories from nearly 17 years ago. A hooded young Walter asks Amelia why she protects him, causing her to reflect on his truly nostalgic name. +1. Amelia looks back at Walter, preparing to explain her duty even in the face of his skepticism. The knight finds it strange that the young lord would ask such things given his royal status. She reminds Walter that despite being the child of a concubine, noble royal blood flows through him and social standing does not affect her service. +2. Amelia asks not to be grouped with those who tried to kill him, while Walter recalls the betrayal of his uncle Lester and Borneria. Suspicious and haunted, the young prince asks for a guarantee that Amelia won't eventually betray him like everyone else. Amelia looks at Walter, the third prince who was the first to be abandoned by the kingdom of Siberia. Despite being only 7 years old, Walter's clouded eyes suggest he expects her to eventually turn on him. +1. Realizing the weight of his trauma, Amelia finds his lack of safety unacceptable and reaffirms her reverence for the royal family. +1. Overcome with a sense of duty, she decides she must protect the boy at all costs. Walter reacts with shock as a dark mark appears, signaling the start of a profound commitment. Stunned by her sudden action, the prince watches as Amelia prepares to demonstrate her loyalty. Amelia takes Walter's hand and explains she will carve her true intentions using a peculiar form of contract magic. +1. As a crest appears on their bodies as proof of the bond, Amelia explains that the contract is established when one party accepts another's desire. +2. Walter is horrified by the crest on his hand, realizing this absolute contract is effectively no different from being a slave. +1. Kneeling before him, Amelia Miseldia formally swears her lifelong loyalty to Walter via Siberia. +2. She considers her own life a small price to pay for gaining his trust and ensuring she can never truly betray her lord. +3. Amelia recalls how she happened to be working at the palace when an assassin tried to eliminate Walter, allowing her to save him. +1. As they flee through the woods, Amelia urges a quick escape from the palace while assassins are ordered to kill them both. +1. Standing tall against their pursuers, the knight declares she will never let anyone harm the child. The enemies are baffled that a prodigy would side with someone they consider a worthless prince. Amelia retorts that no one should be forced to accept misfortune and that there is no such thing as a worthless person. While she doesn't claim to be a champion of justice, she refuses to accept that making a child suffer is right. Locked in a fierce struggle, Amelia vows she will not back down even if it costs her her life. The battle reaches a violent climax as blood spatters across the scene. Amelia reflects on her failure to protect him until the very end, feeling that her failure changed who she was. She worries that Walter must be angry with her, yet she resolves to keep her true identity and past loyalty to the royal family a secret. +2. In her heart, Amelia views herself as a traitor who ultimately couldn't protect her lord to the finish. Even though they are reborn in the same era, she feels ashamed to face him and wonders how he climbed his way to becoming king. +1. Because of these complicated feelings, she has been intentionally avoiding the palace. +1. After 17 years, Amelia, now reborn as Flora, is forced to return to the royal palace by her father's orders. +1. A formal party is held at the palace to select a bride for Duke Michel, the nephew of His Majesty the King. +2. The guests whisper that the 17-year-old Duke Michel is truly gallant, fitting for the head of House Ruberga. +2. Flora observes Michel from a distance, noting that while his age is different, she can see the family resemblance to Walter. She remembers Walter was never that soft, as he was almost always scowling or deadpan during their time together. A memory of Walter surfaces where he tells her that he poured all his possible luck into the single event of meeting her +1. In the memory, Amelia playfully tells His Highness that he is the one who is strange. Walter smirks and calls her an eccentric for risking her life to save someone like him +1. The two share a quiet, meaningful look in the rainy memory. Flora is suddenly snapped out of her daydream by her friend Fifi, who is surprised to see her at the party. Fifi asks if she is after the Duke's hand, but Flora explains she is only there on her family's orders to expand her social circle. Laura reflects on the crowded social scene, noting that no one would join such a chaotic group by choice +1. Determined to maintain her composure, Laura plans to get through the party in her own way, despite her father's low expectations. Fifi teases Laura, pointing out that she is in the same boat as her friend when it comes to social pressures. Gossip swirls through the ballroom with rumors that Duke Michel has already secretly chosen a bride. Stunned by the news, Laura questions the purpose of the party if the race, for the Duke's hand, is already rigged +1. It is revealed that the party is a mere performance to make the Duke's chosen partner, who is of lower standing, appear to be a destined match +1. Laura realizes with a deadpan expression that the entire bridal search is nothing more than a scripted show. Wishing she had known about the rigged nature of the party sooner, Laura laments that she wouldn't have had to bother coming to the palace at all. Curiosity piqued, Laura begins to ask Fifi where she managed to hear such a specific and scandalous rumor. The atmosphere shifts instantly as the grand arrival of the king is announced to the gathered nobility. Gazing at the sovereign, Laura notes that 17 years have passed since she last saw him, and his features have completely changed +1. Despite the passage of time and his new appearance, she instantly recognizes him as Walter Vias Viberia. Laura watches him from afar, silently acknowledging how magnificent he has become while she wasn't looking +1. She recalls how fragile Walter was as a 7-year-old boy, feeling as though he might have vanished if she hadn't protected him +1. The brief but intense time they spent together years ago flashes through her mind as she observes his current state +1. Walter now stands composed and fearless, presenting a figure that is truly worthy of a king +1. Fifi notices Laura's expression and remarks that she looks awfully happy watching the king. Caught off guard, Laura touches her face as Fifi insists she had a joyful smile while looking at him. Laura quickly denies any attraction, while Fifi wonders if the king is exactly the type of man Laura likes +1. Fifi warns that pining for the king would be a path of thorns, as he has never allowed a single lady-in-waiting by his side. Flora considers the king's avoidance of women and wonders if she forced him to endure too much back then +1. The girls speculate that the king may have simply decided he doesn't need anyone, as he doesn't even keep male servants close. The king suddenly addresses Duke Michel, asking if he has finally found a bride at this party. Michel confirms that thanks to the king's kindness in hosting the event, he has encountered a truly wonderful match. The camera pans across the grand balcony of the palace as the royal conversation continues in front of the guests. The king mentions he was drawn to this spot because he felt a nostalgic manna, much to Michel's confusion +1. After making his enigmatic comment, the king turns his back and begins to walk away from the duke. The king pauses, his profile silhouetted as he senses something, or someone, familiar in the crowd. With a sharp, piercing gaze, the king locks eyes with Flora and internally confirms her presence. Flora is taken aback by his rough way of speaking, remembering how politely he used to address her when he was a child +1. Walter reflects that her manna is a power he could never forget, even if he wanted to +1. Flora stands frozen as the king stares down at her, the height difference emphasizing his commanding presence. To her utter shock, the king leans in and tells her that she still has such beautiful eyes. Flora's mind races as she tries to figure out why their eyes met and why she is staring back at him so intensely +1. The physical proximity between the king and the noble lady causes a stir among the nearby guests. Flora struggles to understand the meaning of this sudden, direct confrontation from the king +1. Silhouettes of other noble women are seen whispering in the background as the scandal of the king's attention unfolds. Breaking the silence with a smirk, the king shifts the conversation to a very unexpected topic. He looks her directly in the eye and bluntly asks if she knows how to wield a sword. Flora is stunned by the question, repeating the word, sword, in disbelief. Internally, Flora panics, wondering why on earth a king would ask a noble lady in a dress about swordplay at a bridal party +1. Ignoring her confusion, the king repeats his question with cold intensity, demanding to know if she can wield one or not +1. Flora realizes she has been singled out for this bizarre confirmation, regarding her martial skills +1. She tells herself there is no way he could realize who she is because they have never met in this new life. Flora decides that a lie would be seen through instantly, so she admits she has some basic experience with a sword +1. Upon hearing her answer, the king immediately declares that Flora shall serve as his lady-in-waiting starting today. The sheer absurdity of the command leaves Flora with a look of complete and total shock. The king explains he was looking for a servant to satisfy those pestering him, and he has finally found someone suitable +1. He looks down at her with a satisfied expression, having finally cornered the person he was searching for. Flora identifies herself as Flora Wavebia, dreading that her father will joyfully agree to this arrangement without a second thought. Flora is left reeling from the king's sudden appointment, desperately wishing for an answer to the current situation while feeling the weight of countless skeptical glares from the nobility. She remains in shock, staring at the king's retreating back after he made his grand proclamation. Duke Michel, bewildered by the decision, questions the king on why he chose Flora specifically, noting that the king has never allowed a single person to serve by his side since taking the throne, +1. When Michel asks if the king truly trusts Flora, the king bluntly retorts that he would never place someone he could not trust by his side. The king admits that while he hasn't reached a stage of absolute trust yet, Flora looks exactly like the only person he ever truly placed his trust in. Hearing the word, trust, Flora is struck by the irony of her current situation. She reflects that her past life as Amelia lasted only a few days and that she had essentially used binding magic to earn Walter's trust. Flora tries to convince herself it is a mere coincidence, as her current appearance as Flora Wavebia is completely different from her past self, +2. Walter confesses to Michel that even he is surprised by how easily he declared Flora his lady-in-waiting. Despite his own shock, the king asserts he has no intention of taking back his final decision. Observing his behavior, Flora internally grumbles that Walter's personality and way of speaking have both rotted away over the years. The king offers a small concession, stating he won't force the idea if she truly hates it, but Flora humbly accepts the position out of a sense of duty, +1. Walter acknowledges her acceptance, formally placing her in his care. He informs her that a messenger will be sent after the party and encourages her to enjoy the rest of the evening. Flora reflects on her failure as a disloyal knight, who died before reaching their destination in her previous life. She begins to view this new position as an act of atonement for failing to protect Walter in the past. This perspective makes her feel slightly better, seeing it as an opportunity to finally make things right, +1. Flora looks back with a faint smile, acknowledging the weight of her future responsibilities. She regrets not trying to truly understand the man Walter became, realizing a deeper understanding might have changed their future, +1. Flora realizes her past existence as Amelia Miseldia had carved cruelly vivid memories into Walter's heart. A memory of a young, crying Walter surfaces, where he desperately shouted that he would never forgive her if she died. Flora is haunted by the image of her own death in that past life. She admits she never knew the depth of his grief, or that he had thrown away all pride to cry until his eyes were swollen. She considers her failure to recognize his pain as her true sin. Flora realizes she never understood how much her impulsive actions in her past life had actually saved the boy's heart. She takes full blame for never attempting to understand Walter's true feelings. Gazing at Walter's back, she admits she had wrongly assumed he felt nothing but anger toward Amelia.